Hello, everybody. I'm Candid, Frank Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on NLL Talk. Gary Groob and I welcome our guest, Brett Dobson of the Georgia Swarm. Brett, how you doing today?
Doing good, fellas. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to take part in it.
Awesome.
I'm looking for my volume control. Can't find it. Anyway, good. Well, the first question we always ask, by the way, really thank you for being here. We usually ask the first question is how you ended up picking up a lacrosse stick.
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of a unique story for myself. So growing up, both my parents were phys ed teachers. And my dad is one of his first students he had at his school was a guy by the name of Gavin Prout. I'm sure who you guys might know of very well.
Former guest.
Yeah, former guest. So I believe he gave my dad a lacrosse stick for myself to use, and I kind of picked one up and started playing from there. I think as well, like my dad also had close ties with the LaFontaine family. So John LaFontaine was my old babysitter growing up. So I'm sure he had a lot of influence on that as well. So I think those two guys had a heavy influence on myself picking up a lacrosse stick.
All right, so you are now a professional lacrosse player. So we're going to take you through the whole thing. Gary, start wherever you want to start at the beginning.
Well, you were a hockey goalie to start with, and you actually started out as a forward, wasn't it? When
Yep.
you first started playing lacrosse, and then you got the diagnosis of diabetes, and I guess Dad said it's time to go back in the net. Let's talk about that and just the story behind that, and all of a sudden it's like you're a goalie.
Yeah. So backpedaling a bit. So I'll go back to the very start. So I started off playing player. Um, my dad was a coach for our team, and I was a hockey goalie. So growing up, my favorite hockey team was the Montreal Canadiens. So I loved Jose Theodore, Chris Paul Huet, and then my favorite goalie of all time was Carey Price. So I already being a hockey goalie. One game our goalie ended up having heat stroke, and my dad was like, "Hey, you're going to net." I said, "All right, perfect, sounds good. I'm gonna enjoy this." So went to net, had fun with it, and it was like, okay, it's time to go back to being player. Then once I got diagnosed with diabetes, I was like, all right, it's a little bit easier to monitor my blood sugar levels at the time from a sense, and I ended up enjoying it more and more. And as I got older, I kind of figured I'm a little bit lazier, so I don't like to run that much. So I decided to stick with it and go from there. So yeah, it was a unique experience. I think obviously being a hockey goalie before that, like my parents always said they never wanted me to be a goalie because of how expensive the gear was.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately things changed. So I'm glad it changed. I think it worked out for the best of us, and I think that I'm having a lot of fun doing what I do now.
Right, right. Now, with diabetes, is there a lot of obviously there's a lot of maintenance and making sure your sugar levels and whatever, but while you're playing, how does that affect everything?
Yeah, so when my blood sugar tends to go low, I'm oftentimes like kind of loopy and space cadetty. So I'll process things in my head, but I won't react or move properly. So a lot of times I'll see shots, I'll just be back to that, back to that, back to that. And I'm seeing it all happen, and I'm just not moving to the ball. So if my blood sugar is a little low in that sense, it could be not a good night for myself. So being able to monitor that is important. I think too, if like how bulky the pads can be and how much you sweat and what you eat and what you're putting in your body beforehand is very
Right,
important to maintain. And as I've kind of started to learn more and more now, like it's better to have it a little higher because at the end of the day, sometimes the adrenaline can affect the way your blood sugar goes when you're in game. And I think that being able to have some sugar around before game, during the game, or even after the game is something that's important because I don't want to have that, fall and be a reason for why we lost the game, right? So I also ultimately got to take care of that, make sure I'm not putting my teammates at risk as well of me playing poorly because of my diabetes.
right. Now, are you're outspoken about it, and you work as probably as a role model, as somebody with a disability to help other kids. One of my favorite guys actually is Scott Godfrey with lacrossing barriers and talking about blind lacrosse and all the other things that he's been doing out in Calgary. But this is another idea on that is that nothing is the word can't. That word can't is not there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that for myself, going back to when I kind of was first diagnosed, I remember asking like, "Hey, like, am I gonna be able to play sports again?" 'Cause as a kid, all you want to do is go run around and be a normal kid. Play
Right.
basketball, hockey, lacrosse, whatever it is, right? So, A guy who's been more outspoken now is Max Domi in the NHL. I think he's
Mhm.
been a role model for a lot of kids, and I want to, for myself personally, try and take a bigger role in the diabetic community and be more outspoken for the lacrosse community itself. And I think
Right.
that if you look around, there's a lot of people who have the disease, and I'm starting to see that, and I'm hoping to kind of exactly right. So I'm starting to kind of hopefully be able to do more for that from a promotional standpoint and be able to kind of set something up as well down in Georgia to have kind of something like Teats Warriors in Georgia and have kind of
Mhm.
sponsor that. So we're working on kind of get that done down in Georgia. But yeah, that's what I want to kind of push for as I kind of continue my professional lacrosse career.
Right.
One of the things that people don't know about diabetics is sometimes they can become very emotional. In other words, lose control of their emotions. That's one of the challenges, I guess, you have to fight the most.
100%. Yeah, and I think as a goalie too, you got to make sure you stay even keel and you focus on that. So that might make my job a little more tougher. And there's some nights where maybe I played bad and I can let that stuff go afterwards. But in game, you got to kind of just even keel and kind of focus through it, right? Because your blood sugar can affect the way your emotions are handled.
I don't know what it's like to play 60 minutes of high intense lacrosse with balls coming at you left or right, but I know I have a problem just driving to the grocery store.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? To each their own, right? It's not easy sometimes, but we get through it. We're tougher than most, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Carry
You know,
on, Gary. I just
regular
wanted
days
to,
are tough enough.
as you figured out, I'm a diabetic too, so I understand some of the challenges that you have.
Exactly, and one thing that was nice for me too, going to Georgia, I don't know how many other teams have this, but our trainer is actually diabetic. So he's
Wow.
been able to help
Oh,
me out,
wow.
on a couple of occasions, and I think that, obviously having a guy who knows what's going on, it's like you can make kinda comments about that stuff. Like I made a joke to him the other day, we were playing in Colorado, and I, like, kinda stubbed my toe, and I might have broken it a bit, but I said to him, I said, we can just amputate it now, they might take it later on, there's no sense of it being needed now, as a joke, and only diabetics will
Absolutely.
understand that kinda joke, right?
Mhm. Sure. All right, let's move back a little bit. You went to the Hill Academy. Let's talk about it. We've had a number of guys on from the Hill. We've had a number of coaches from the Hill on. Let's talk about the school, the program, and just how it prepared you for later into college and everything else.
Yeah, so originally I wasn't also supposed to go to Hill Academy. A lot of my close friends that I was playing minor with and that were my friend group ended up going. And I was kind of one of the last few guys to be like, hey, like mom and dad, you gotta let me go. Like I promise you, like I know this is a lot of money, but it's not gonna be, I'm not gonna piss it away in a sense, and it's gonna be worth the investment.
Mhm.
And once I got there, it was awesome. I loved every second of it. I had a lot of really good coaches there. Obviously, Brody ran the show there, but guys like Reed Acton and Riley O'Connor, Luke Magnan, to
Mhm.
name a few guys, like those guys, I still have a really good relationship today, and I wouldn't be where I am without those people coaching me at the Hill. And I think that because I was at the Hill for 3 years, I was able to learn a lot from guys that were in the NLL and help me not only get to the college level, but know where I am now, like stuff that I had already seen from years before for the NLL. It's helped a ton, and I think that being in an environment where I love the fact that it was in a hockey rink, it helped me go to school because it take away the fear of wanting to go to school in an actual school setting, and I felt like that helped me a ton and allowed me to kinda get over that fear a bit and just be able to play lacrosse every day. Like, I'm a lax rat, I love the sport a ton, I'm all over it. It's kind of my personality sometimes, and I think that being there was cool, and, I loved it, and being able to do it with, like, 5 of my closest friends from, the Whitby, Oshawa area was awesome, and to be able to have the success we had there was unique, and, being able to be pushed every day in the gym and understand what the grind kinda looks like helped me at the next level at St. Bonaventure.
Right. Now I have an association with the Green Gales, and you did Whitby lacrosse from the time, I guess, from four on to basically to the time you get to the NLL. Let's talk about that now. And I guess most of the time you were with Sean Williams as your coach.
Yeah, so Dyson and I are the same age. Willie was my coach from when I was 4 all the way to when I was 21. So I had a long time with him, and I'm grateful for that because I think, I talk about guys who helped me introduce myself to the sport of lacrosse, but if it wasn't for Willie, I don't think I'd be in the NLL, and I had a pretty cool opportunity when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame to, have a full circle moment and kind of thank him for, everything he's done because, oftentimes you don't thank the people that get you to where you are and be able to really say it to him and tell it to him, especially on a night like that. I think, with him playing in Rochester for so many years, like being able to go watch Patty O'Toole play was sick. And,
Hmm.
Toller was on the team too, and Toller was a Oshawa guy as well. So it's kind of all connected in that sense, right? And being able to, again, go in the locker rooms after game, go be ball boy a couple of times. Like that stuff's as a kid, you think it's the coolest thing in the world, and it's like that's what you're striving for, and you don't forget those moments, right? You want to be able to pass it on to some other kids as you got to experience that, right? So that's what I kind of focus on too, and I think that Willie coaching my team allowed me to have a lot of love for lacrosse and see the thing, and then obviously, the stuff that happened with Tucker and him being braver than brave. I think that shows you a different perspective on life and how things can change and what you need to be grateful for. And to be able to kind of carry out his legacy sometimes is awesome. And obviously, I don't wear number 51, but anytime we play in Buffalo, I got a special pair of lime green shoes for him that I wear every time we play there. So,
Nice.
being able to be there for that stuff and be around the Williams family and to support them and to show my kind of due diligence for everything that was going on is something that I try to do. And again, my minor cross career was awesome. I think we won every provincials my major year except for my Bantam year, field and box. So that was when you do that, it's pretty good. And unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to win a Minto. I think COVID kind of set that up short for us, just because of how things ended for my last 2 years. But the 01 age group was able to take care of that for us.
Yeah, definitely. It was an awesome series and an awesome win. Um, as you were doing junior A, you really came into your own. Excuse me. 1,612 minutes, 0.792 average. You really started feeling it at that point. I think that this was the direction it's going to be.
Yeah, so I think for that, like, I played 5 years of junior A lacrosse, and I was grateful for that. Year 1, I didn't really know what to expect too much, especially as a first-year guy. Like, you don't know how much you're gonna play. The game speed's a lot different, right? But you gotta learn. So practice was a good time for me to focus on that stuff. And Joel Watson was my goalie partner for my first 3 years of junior, and he was an
Mhm.
awesome partner. Him and I actually went to high school together before I went to the Hill Academy, so we had a little bit of a prior relationship to that, and I felt
Right.
like going in there, it was a lot of fun. It was unique, and I feel like I look back to that. It's like how much I've grown as a goalie since then, right? Like I felt like, I played well, but I don't think it was anywhere near where I am today. And I think that the growth has been crazy to see because I feel like a lot of people oftentimes have referred to me as a field goal, and I agree with them. I feel like for a long time my field game was a lot better than my box game, but I think that I've put a lot of work into my box game to try and get it to where it needs to be on the same level as my field game. And I think that we're starting to kind of see some of that now, right? And I think that you have to mature a bit, understand the game before you can kind of take that next step and leap. But I think for myself, seeing as many shots as I can, being put in tough situations and, either sink or swim type of scenarios that occur out of those events. And I think that being able to sink more or swim more often than sink was what's kind of led me to where I am today.
Right. Right. Now let's talk a little bit about your teammates, and you're getting a chance now to watch a lot of them make it into the league and succeed in the NLL as well. Talk about just the feeling there of the camaraderie and all the guys that you grew up with are all making in their dreams too.
Yeah, so it's awesome to see. So from myself, so I didn't do a fifth year, a PG year in high school. I didn't do a fifth year in college. So a lot of guys that were my age or a year younger that I played with in every other year in box and minor got drafted this year. So to be able to be at the draft and congratulate all those guys so they got drafted because I know how unique that feeling is and how awesome it is, and to see all that stuff happen is awesome. And obviously when you play junior, you got a 5 year age gap, right? So my first
Mhm.
year, my captain was Connor Kernan. So I'll hear a lot of stuff from him when we play him sometimes about trying to let him
Mhm.
score one or two. Or, Dawson Thie was on my teams in junior as well. So guys like that, right? So you see them and it's like unique to kind of go through it and be like, holy crap, like we played together. Like he's a lot older than I am, but we were teammates at one point in time. And it's a unique scenario. And
Mhm.
not to mention how, pretty cool it is to see a lot of people from the Whippy Warriors Junior A Lacrosse Association be playing on the next level. That's pretty unique. I don't think we have the most in the league, but I do know we have a good chunk of them that were guys that I grew up watching. Like I still am in awe of Shane Jackson. I watched him
Mhm.
win the 2011 Minto Cup. That was a
Right.
highlight of a childhood for myself, to being a kid running around the rink,
Sure.
especially with that being LaFontaine's last year as well, right? So that's just kind of crazy to see to me too.
I'll say Orangeville, Peterborough, Whitby. I think those are the big three, which have put probably the most players into the NLL now.
Yeah, I would agree, and maybe I'd even throw Six Nations up there too, right? They got a lot
True.
of players in there too, and I think that, we're gonna start to see a lot of other, cities start to become hotbeds for guys in the NLL. I think Ottawa might be up there soon. There's a lot of talent coming out of there, right? And
Mhm.
people that invest into their minor systems. You're able to see kind of what's happening forward, right? And being able to push this sport to the next level.
Well, we talked about Whitby winning the Minto and the Alberta team. Now West Lacrosse is, it's not just BC anymore. Now Alberta is thriving also, so it's great to see that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's only a matter of time as well till you start seeing more people pop out from, Manitoba,
Mhm.
Quebec, all those kind of other provinces that are surrounded by it. Because I think lacrosse, once you have the resources for it,
Yeah,
you're able to kind of push it forward. And with it being the Olympics right now, who knows where all these kids could possibly pop up and come from, right? There's a couple kids already from Manitoba in the league, and I think that it's only gonna be a matter of time until we start seeing other kids from maybe a kid from Saskatchewan. I believe there is a kid from Saskatchewan now, but we got a couple kids from Nova Scotia and the
hmm,
maritime provinces, right? So maybe we'll see some more from out there with, the growth of lacrosse through the Thunderbirds.
it's amazing. Now you went to St. Bonaventure, and of course, my first question is, of all the places, why St. Bonaventure?
Well, I'll be frank with you for a couple of reasons. One, it was my only offer to play Division One lacrosse, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to take that.
Hmm.
Two, originally I was supposed to be a phys ed teacher, and their program was transferable back to Canada. And three, but I would probably put this more towards one or two. If you ever get the opportunity to play or meet Randy Mearns, he's the type of guy you're ready to, run through a wall with, and he's always got his players taken care of. So once I met Randy Mearns and understand that he was already the Team Canada coach at the time, and my goals being to want to play for Team Canada as well as being the PLL and the NLL, I felt like he was the perfect fit for me, and he understood me very well. And I still have a really, really good relationship with him, and
Hmm.
it was close to home too. My parents were able to come down to some of my games, only 3.5, 4 hours, depending on traffic.
Right.
Obviously, COVID put a little bit of a wrench in there, so I only got to really see him my first year as a freshman and my last year. So I guess those are the better years for them, anyways, to kind of go through as parents. But yeah, like that, those 4 to 5 things I mentioned there were a lot of the reasons why I ended up at St. Bonaventure, and I loved it, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Right. Well, you left your mark there, that's for sure. Most saves in a single season, highest save percentage in a single season, most saves in a single game, just to name a few things there. So, yeah, you definitely left your mark. You were the first recruit, too, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was as Coach Mearns would like to put it, I was the very first phone call, the very first recruit on campus, the very first commit. So I felt like being able to do that and, obviously leave your mark on a program. And there's a lot of other guys that have left their mark on the program too. That are, again, I know I get a lot of credit for that, but there's, we
Mhm.
got 4 or 5 guys that are playing in the NLL now. So it's awesome to see the growth of where we've taken that program to. And there's going to be more kids coming out year after year. So being able to leave my mark was good, and now I know you mentioned a lot of the positive accolades, but I'm sure there's a lot of most goals given up in a game, most turnovers in the clear, and all that kind of stuff. My first couple of years, but it took me some time to adjust and learn to that. But I think I figured it out by the end of it.
Right. Well, when you get named to the TO2 Wharton and watch, you're obviously doing well. So, you know,
Yeah,
I
I'll
would pat
take it.
yourself on the back instead of hitting.
I'll take it. It was a unique situation, and I felt like it was awesome just to even be in the same conversation as that because
Mhm.
in high school, nobody really wanted to, recruit or offer you, and that's all right, right? But you got to make the most of whatever opportunity you're given. And I felt like that was a good chance to, in a sense, prove the naysayers wrong and continue to grow as a player.
Absolutely. You can laugh at all the naysayers now, especially uh, when we
Oh
get
yeah,
through, when
I
we
got a
take a look
couple of
at your
those still,
PLL and NLL career. Sure.
and it's only starting, right? I think that as the years go on, I'm still gonna think about those guys who kind of wrote you off. That's what kind of motivates you
Yeah, it's good
to get
motivation.
better, each
Absolutely.
day.
Now, you decided not to have a fifth year and you declared for the PLL draft and you were taken 12th overall. Let's talk about that and your original time with the Archers. And of course, ramping right up until the championship, in which, you know, you earned that thing right down to the very last second and the last save to win that thing. Because, man, talk, kids dream about that. Either you're scoring it or you're saving it with, no time left on the clock. And you were able to live it. So let's
Yeah.
just go through a little bit of the PLL stuff with you.
It's kinda crazy to think about it, so, I'll go all the way back to my last year at school. Actually, throw it back to my junior year,
Sure.
when they kind of announced that everyone was gonna get a 5th year for COVID. I kinda sat down with Randy Mearns, and I kinda said, "Hey, Mearnsy, like, you obviously know that my goals are to play in Team Canada, play for in the PLL, and play in the NLL." I feel like the NLL at the time was gonna be something that wasn't gonna be as far-fetched, but the PLL to me was a lot further because there wasn't many kids getting drafted
Mhm.
from a mid-major program like St. Bonaventure.
Right.
I think I'm gonna have to utilize my 5th year somewhere else, and he said, "You know what? I completely understand it. I want you to live your dream and go chase it, I think that that's a good opportunity for you to go there. Give me 5 schools that you'd want to possibly go look at. So I was looking predominantly at schools in the ACC between Syracuse, Virginia, Duke, and I spoke to Denver as well. And I wanted to go play at Duke with Dyson because we had done that our whole lives.
Mhm.
Um, and with Gary being the coach at Syracuse, him and I had a couple of conversations as well. But as the season went on, a couple games into maybe midway point of the season, Coach Merns had pulled me in and said, "Hey, I know we talked about that 5th year stuff, but coaches are asking, are you going to be in the draft this year? And if so, are you going to show up to camp?" I said, "If they draft me, I will be there." So eventually, as the season went on, it wasn't kind of fully announced yet. And decided to make the decision that I was going to not do a 5th year and then go into the draft. And I felt like, looking back at it, there was a lot of what ifs at the time, and I think that was the best choice I could have ever made, just because I
Mhm.
felt like when you get in the PLL and you're part of a team, you start to learn the culture, and you stick with that guy, right? So if it was somebody else, it's tough to justify drafting somebody over somebody else if that spot's not already open. So I felt like with that spot, there's I think 3 or 4 goalie spots that had opened up at the time. I think Galloway had retired. I think that Drew Adams had just stepped away from the Archers. Charlie Cipriano had retired from the Water Dogs, and there might have been one other, um, guy who had made a move around there, or possibly could have been like, "Hey, this could be a backup spot." So I was
Mhm.
looking at kind of the writing on the wall, and I was like, "You know what? I think this is the right choice. Let's go do it." And as you lead into the draft, you kind of see, a lot of, all American stuff that comes out. A couple guys had me at first, couple had me at second, couple had me at third, right? So you
Mhm.
don't really know where you're going to go in the draft. And you see all these mock drafts like, oh, only one goalie is going to go, or it's going to be 2, and you're not one of them. So you don't really know what's going to happen. So
Right, right.
come draft day, I was pretty nervous. I ended up going to get like kind of like an end of the season, like inspection from a doctor that we had down there, just to make sure in case I were to get drafted, if there was any injuries that had come up.
Mhm.
So I was very nervous. My trainer, who's a huge beauty, shout out to him at St. Bonaventure, the A train, was looked at me. He's like, "Dauber, like you're all right, man. You seem like not really yourself right now." I was like, "Yeah, like, I'm kind of on edge today. I don't know if there's anything that's really wrong here, or if I'm going to get drafted." And he was like, "Hey, relax. It's gonna be okay, brother. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna go do this." So, a couple beers later, a couple margaritas later, come draft time, first round goes by. I don't hear my name, so I'm a little disappointed. 'Cause originally I had heard that hey, the Archers were gonna take me as high as they possibly could. So, I think the one big thing that shocked everybody on draft day was Wisnowski's going 1. So that kind of threw things
Mhm.
off, but a lot of the coaches were ready for that. Um, then they kind of got into the second round. I think the Archers had the second pick or the third pick in the second round. And then I heard my name called, and I kind of went nuts. And I was there with all my teammates from college who were there to celebrate
Right,
with me. And
right.
it was an awesome event, just because I felt like for all the guys I was there with that I started my college career with, and we had 33 freshmen, they all got to see someone live out their dream and like be a part of that. I still think that it's a tremendous honor, and to be able to be drafted in that scenario is so cool. And I was like kind of bawling my eyes out the whole time, and like calling people, telling them saying thank you for everything and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
it was great. And then leading into my first year at the Archers, obviously Adam Gilman was my goalie partner, who was awesome
Mhm.
my first year.
Right.
Coming in as a rookie, you don't really know what to expect, but as a rookie, you want to earn the veterans' respect, and being able to, if you're not playing, add some value, whether it be you know, being a good teammate, being a locker room guy, right, being a
Sure.
post game guy, right. So embrace whatever your role is, and obviously, I was a little younger by not, taking a 5th year. So
Mhm.
um, I had a great group of guys around me that were Canadian that helped me a lot. A lot. Playing with Graham Hossick is something that every goalie should dream of, just because
Yeah.
he's so good at lacrosse, and he's Canadian. He's able to help us out. Warren Jeffrey was on the team, but he was hurt that year. Latrell Harris was one of our D middies. We had Trey Leclerc, Justin Anasio, was a face-off guy from Canada, got drafted there that year, and then Connor Fields. So he's an honorary Canadian at times. I'll count him as a
Yeah.
Canadian, but he was there as well. And just being around those guys, and then you integrate them with everybody else that was there, was unique. And I didn't play until, heck, I think it was like the last 3 weeks of the season. I played in Denver against the Whipsnakes, and I felt like that was the first game, but I didn't really know what to expect. And once I kind of got my feet wet, I was like, okay, like I could do this again and maybe be a little better. Because my first start, there was lightning, weather delays. You play the first quarter, you give up kind of a couple, you don't really get to settle down, then you got to go inside because there's a weather delay, and then you got to come back
Right.
out and get back in the flow of things. So that was difficult, but you know what, it worked out. Although we lost, I feel like it helped a lot for me, and I felt like it led me to kind of get into my second season. Now, with in between my first and second season with the Archers, I had a year under my belt, the Swarm, that I actually think helps you out a little bit in a sense. Obviously, field and box are different, but I think the way you approach the game as a starting goal and understand that you got to make sure you keep your spot and perform, especially at a young age. I felt like I learned that a lot through the season with the Swarm, the way
Right.
the year ended up going for us, and like you know although it was my second year in the PLL, I technically thought it was like my third year in a sense, just because you played your first year, you're a rookie, then you had your rookie year of the Swarm, and then you're here again.
Mhm.
So in a sense, that's 3 seasons. But once I got into the year this year, I felt really comfortable. We added way more Canadians than we had the year before, and that was kind of a lot of our culture and background
Right.
of the team. And I felt like that was just a tremendous success for us because it was a different locker room, a different vibe, and a good vibe for us. And like I felt like it played to everyone's strengths in their team. And I think that obviously we lost to the chaos and early on in the season, but I think that one was a game that we were looking around, especially on offense and defense. We're like, all right, nobody hurt each other because we're about to go play against Team USA at the Worlds the following week. So let's make sure we get out of here scratch free so nobody really
Right.
hurts themselves. And then we lost one at the end of the year to the Water Dogs that didn't really mean much in a sense for the standing. So um but when it counted, we turned it on, and getting to that final game was awesome. Everyone wants to be in that position. I felt like it came out of the gates hot. I was excited. I ready to play. I think first possession, I had like 3 saves in a row before my parents had even sat down in their seats,
Mhm.
which was always a good start for a goal, and you want to have that. And I felt like as the second half approached, it started to cool down a bit, and the Water Dogs started to, come back on a run. And I felt like, you know what, hey, eventually they tied it up. They might even taken the lead. I can't remember. I'm still kind of a bit of a blur from that part of things, but one thing leads to another. Graham Hossick absolutely, murders Ben Randall, and the momentum switches back in our favor.
Mhm.
And we go down, we score a couple goals on the man down, they score one on the man up, and then we get the ball back and we clear it, and they get a timeout and they drop a pretty good play for with how much time was left on the clock. And the guy who shot it, Jake Caraway, had
That was a hell of a shot too.
like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he had 2 shots that he already blew past me that game. And if you watch the film, you can't really see it from the angles that you see, but you see our 2 D middies diving across, kind of
Mhm.
with their hands up top. So he drops his hands low, and because he dropped them low, I had a feeling it was probably going to go there because you're not pulling it back if you have 2 guys diving at you. That's the only opportunity you get. And because it was raining that day and it was on grass,
Mhm.
um, I think that's why I got just a piece of it. Because if it was on turf, it would have gone up higher, especially because it was going to be wet. So
Yeah.
it would have skipped and probably got in. But because it was grass, it stayed a little lower, and I got a good beat on it, just enough to get over it. And you talk about that being every kid's, dream. Well, at the
Mhm.
moment, I didn't really think about it that way because it's like, oh crap, like what just happened? I didn't process that. Like
Yeah.
that's his dream too. If he scores that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, they
Yeah.
win the game, time runs out. So, in my head, it's like, all right, there's still time left on the clock. We got to make sure they don't have a quick stick here. I got to try and pick it off. So, got my stick on the ball, but someone kind of whacked it as it was in the air too. And then all of a sudden, I heard the horn, I heard the whistles, and I said, okay, now I can start celebrating. And it didn't sink in until maybe after the game when people were talking about it, and like, you get to see it from a different perspective. And obviously being named MVP too was pretty cool. I think that
Mhm.
being able to celebrate it with my girlfriend, my parents, my family, and everybody that was there, I think it's really cool because they were there for a lot of the ups and downs that had
Sure.
occurred. Throughout the recruiting process, throughout being
Mhm.
told like, you're not necessarily going to be playing at the next level to where we are now, right?
Sure. Now, you're talking about that, but you also got a chance to play against your I guess your idol as a goaltender with Dylan Ward, and
Yeah,
we'll talk a little further about it when we get to Team Canada. But yeah, to duel against Ward while you're doing it and win a championship, just a little more icing on top, right?
yeah, and it was bittersweet though too, right? Because you don't want to see a guy you look up to your entire life that you want to be hurt his hamstring the way he did to kind of end
Yeah.
that game. And ultimately that like was another thing that I was excited about, right? Because like who would have thought again, 4 to 6 years before, I'm watching him play in Israel, and like I'm not even a freshman in college yet, and like this is a
Mhm.
guy I want to model my game after, be in the same position he's in, be in the same boat he's in, right, and like focus on all that kind of stuff. And 4 to 6 years later, I'm now, playing against them for a championship. And I think it was very unique too to see it from a Canadian perspective that, we got 2 Canadian goalies that are playing in the PLL championship right now. I don't think
Mhm.
that's ever happened before, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's really cool to see that, and really cool to, understand that like the sport of lacrosse has grown, and how much of an impact he's had on my life as a goalie. I'm hoping to be able to do the same for a bunch of goalies now in Canada.
Right. Well, the Canadian Field program has come leaps and bounds from the miracle in Manchester in '78 to where we are now. And now it's almost a 50-50 split. Our field program has just gotten that good now.
Yeah, and I think a large part to that is Brody Merrill and what he's done at the Hill and all these
Mhm.
schools that are, seeing the value in Canadians playing at the next level down the States and understand what we can do. And then we're able to retool and remodel how we play the sport of lacrosse by Americanizing it in a sense, and then bringing it back to Canada, and us, in a sense, revolutionizing the box game in a
Right.
sense more, right? And taking what we've learned and passing it down, and vice versa. So I think it's been great. I think that, there's a lot of guys that, probably could have been on that team this summer that played in San Diego that, maybe should have been, could have been, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's just an attestament to the talent that we have now, that how many kids are playing, right?
Sure.
It also helps when you consider the Olympics are coming pretty soon, and the six the the six is going to be on a field, and that means Canadians are going to have a little more experience on field.
Oh yeah, from when we played in Birmingham, Alabama, my first year in the PLL, and that sixes was the first time they kind of really tested it, and it was box lacrosse with less contact and bigger nets. You know what I mean? So I think
Not
that
a
plays
goalie
to.
nightmare though. Sixes for a goalie doesn't seem like fun.
You know what though? A lot of the shots aren't from outside as much as you think, so they're in tight.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you had to play the Americans in a 4 out of 7 series, I don't think that would be a lot of fun. But if you're
Right.
playing the Americans in a 4 out of 7 series, you're gonna, suck it up and give it everything you got in a sense, right?
Mhm.
No matter what.
Sure. All right, so let's get on to the NLL. You get drafted by Georgia, 11th overall, and you're originally coming in as a backup. Craig Wendy, I think, at the starting job, and it wasn't exactly a dream start. You're probably the best 0-7 team I've ever seen. A bounce here, a call there, and you're 5-2. It was the craziest thing week to week. Just one thing going wrong here or one thing going wrong there, but in the meantime, it was 0-7, and you come in, you become the starting goalie, and at the same time, the team turns it around, and there starts your NLL career. Let's
Yeah.
go back to the camp though first. Was it what you envisioned going to an NLL training camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, like it was unique in a sense. So, I felt like because of that sixes thing I just talked about in
Mhm.
Birmingham, I had relationships with Eddie Cobo, Sean Ferris, Jordan McIntosh was our captain, Brian Cole was our assistant captain, and knowing a bunch of guys that were already there just from, either playing with them some way somehow with other Team Canada events. I felt like getting that camp, it wasn't like okay, like I got to, introduce everybody to myself. Like they already had an idea who I was, and
Right.
obviously, there's guys though that I didn't know, like Lyle Thompson, right? So first kind of practice, it's like your mouth's to the floor. It's like, holy crap, that's Lyle. You know what I mean? Like he's shooting on me now. Like, okay, and then they're like, yeah, Lyle's just gonna do stuff like that sometimes. It's okay. It happens to everybody. It's like, oh, all right, that's fair. It's good to see. So looking at camp, it was I guess I could say it was somewhat what I expected. I think that at the end of the day, as a goalie, you can't overlook it, right? Like your job's to stop the ball and clear the ball. But in order to do that, you got to focus on yourself. You can't focus on other things. So, being able to do that and having Mike Poole in there, it was his first year. He just retired.
Hmm.
Having him there, I felt helped a ton for me to kind of pick his brain, ask questions, bounce things off of him, and
Right.
learn how to grow as a young kid. 'Cause I know as a goalie, like it takes sometimes 4 years to fully develop in this league and to be, you know, fully primed and ready to go and understand how to play this league. But I think I found out in the first 5 games that it has to happen a little quicker. And I think that I look at it too, like you said, bounce, call, something going the other way. It's
Yeah.
a 5-2 team. At the same time, though, if those things go the other way, who knows if I play last year, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
think that, you know, it was a weird start to the season last year. We would play a game, have a week off, play a game, then had Christmas, then have another week off, play a game, and then have 2 weeks off. And then because we had all those bye weekends used up to start, and we went on for 13 straight weeks, maybe, or 12 weeks and had 13 games.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 games we played Rochester and Philly. And those ones were ones that we kind of dropped late that could have, gone either way. Then I get a phone call after those breaks saying, "Hey, you're getting the nod tonight." I said, "Pardon?" So yeah, you're starting against Buffalo. So I was like, "Oh crap!" I mean, they're a pretty good team. So let's see if how I do here. I get a call late. I'm with my dad in Atlanta because I live down there now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "Hey, should we tell mom? Should she fly in?" And she did not fly in, but my first start, I think they had 6 shots, 5 goals went in. One of the goals was
Good,
off a rebound
good
that I
thing.
didn't save, so it wasn't a good start. I ended up getting pulled, but luckily, Craig Wendy got pulled afterwards as well. I was able to go back in and kind of straighten myself out,
Right,
and
the ship. Yeah.
jokingly, I said to my dad, I said, "Oh, well, probably a good thing that, mom didn't fly in for this one because that would have been a
Yeah.
lot of money that could have been gone to waste." So, and then the following weekend, we played in Buffalo, and I always find that's more of a home game to me just because I went to school near there
Mm-hmm.
at St. Bonaventure in Western New York.
Sure.
And I thought like I played well there. Um, and we had another week off and played Colorado. I thought I played well against Colorado. That was my first time going up against Dylan Ward.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving on through the season, uh, I believe we played Toronto. I got pulled. Played Toronto again and Toronto. Played most of the game, but got pulled. But in between there, we had a team trip to Nashville, and then at that time, after we played those guys, we played Albany, and we blew the doors off them like 20-4. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's when the whole season kind of changed and turned for the betterment of us because it's like, holy crap, we just hung 20 against those guys,
Yeah.
and we got hell of the 4. It's like, okay, we could do this. Play Albany again, right? Beat them 9-8 overtime. The next game we play Rochester in a barn burner, lose 19-18. Right, that was a tough one. That was a tough one for me to kind of swallow. But hey,
Mm-hmm.
you got to go through ups and downs sometimes as a young goalie. Then you play Philly and Philly. We get a big win on a buzzer beater where they strip the ball, but Lau kind of loses it. They pick it up. They have 2 looks at the end. They don't score. We win, walk off win. Then we just got the train rolling. I think we played like Sask or Sask or New York, and then had a back to back. We played New York. Then we had to go to Halifax. Then we played Rochester again and lost. And then we had to play Halifax at the end of the year. We lost on that one, but we had 1 win away from being in the playoffs. And oh boy, that could have changed everything, right?
Definitely. And, in a 7-1 for the second half of the season. And that's the team that really, I think, ramped up into this year and the team that you have on there now. During that losing streak, though, we had both Sean and Eddie on the show and very even keeled. They're, consummate professionals and just, way we went, and they were very, very confident that you guys would find the right way. And, this way is up. And sure enough, away you went. But all through that, your stock rose as you got more comfortable being the starter. The team got more comfortable with you being the starter, and you could just see just the composure that they weren't so nervous and things. And transition came back, Lyle and his moves and all the other things that go on. And I think that's ramped up into what's gone on this year so far with the games.
Yeah, and I think too, like a lot of that is a testament to a few things. One, guys have to be able to trust you in that, right? And I think that by getting more comfortable, understanding what my game's more like, they're able to play around that. And two, with that being said, being able to play around that, we can scheme things a little differently. Like, hey, like I'm okay giving up this shot compared to this shot, right? So being
Mm-hmm.
able to do that, and then when you have a guy who, I'm not going to say I make the most saves every night, but there's some nights I don't make them. But a guy who can somewhat routinely, be able to get you stops on the back end. That gives the rest of the team confidence in their game, right? They're not playing on eggshells. They're not worried about,
Yeah.
oh crap, we got to score 15 to win tonight, or crap, we got to make sure they don't score more than 7 tonight, right? I think that helps everybody out on the D end, and I think that when that stuff starts happening, the boys start rolling, and when you're traveling with each other every weekend, like we were down the stretch of the season last year, like that's where you start to get the camaraderie as a team going, and I think that that's when you start to see things turning, and it's a long season, right? Like although we've started the season off pretty well right now at 4-2, could it be better? Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, we'll take 4 wins compared to the 0-7 we had last year to start the year, right?
Sure.
So,
I think your best game this year was so far against Buffalo in that 8-7 game because defensively, you guys were sharp as could be. You were great in net. You had all the answers for them. Transitionally, you looked good. Obviously, you had a little more offense in that game, but you get the Matt Vince factor in that. But you guys were rolling in there. Everything looked like it was supposed to be.
yeah, and I mean to that point, right? Like Buffalo's a great place to play, whether if you're the home team or the visiting team, right? I think that anytime you get a chance to play in front of 16,000 people, you're going to make the most of it no matter what, right?
Sure.
And I think that as a goalie, you want to make sure you do your job and you don't have to hear it from the fans. And I think that too. Like I always laugh. Like I thought Vancouver got the best of me in a sense, right? And going into Buffalo, like I laugh because those are guys I went to school with, right? They're
Right.
like
Sure.
that know me personally, right? So to play in front of people that you know and that they're probably booing you. Like it makes me laugh and it puts me at ease in a sense. And like for me, that's a home game, right? That's
Hmm.
I played here for 4 years before this. And that's where I felt like the team was kind of buzzing. I think that like that stuff's really good. I still don't think as a team we've played a complete game from the goaltending to the defense to the offense to the transition to the faceoffs, right? Like you want to peak at the right time, and you want to continue to improve as we go on throughout the season. I just think that like that was a good indicator that put a lot of people not necessarily on notice, right? Because anybody could beat anybody any weekend, but be
Right.
able to say like, hey, we're not here to mess around.
Have you noticed the difference with having teams all play the same schedule? One set in the standings. Everybody travels. There aren't any advantages anymore, especially being in Georgia.
Yeah, like I think one thing that I've noticed is that like every weekend's game's a must win in a sense. Like
Hmm.
there's no like, oh, this is a coin flip, it's easy. No, there's no easy game. And like these head to head things will matter at the end. So like you got to make sure that the best team wins. And that's what they're trying to unify here. And I think it's been awesome so far. And I think that like traveling to new places and learning things has been cool. Like the Vancouver trip was an eye opener for me just because of how long of a travel it is, time
Sure.
change, and all that kind of stuff. So, but doing that earlier on in the season, when we go to play in San Diego, I'll have a better idea what to expect for that. And I think too, like we have an interesting stretch in a week. In 7 days, we play 3 games. We'll touch both coasts. We'll go San Diego to Panther City. So San Diego on a Friday, Panther City on a Sunday, to Halifax on a Friday the following
Oh,
week. So, hey, we're hoping to try and get out there
wow.
with 3 wins, right? But
Wow.
that's something that unified standings are. But like other teams have to deal with that, right? Like I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
when we play Saskatchewan, they're coming off a back to back where they actually have to fly in the day of the game that we play them. So there's
Right.
unique situations that occur, but you can't let stuff like that be an excuse for not playing your best.
Sure. Now, Monday to Friday, um, how do you get ready for the game? Do you do a lot of film work, or you're talking about being a lax rat, talking with coaches? How do you prepare yourself for the weekend's games?
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough that I'm a full time lacrosse player now. Again, I can lacrosse is my full time job, so I do a lot of goalie coaching.
Hmm.
Um, I work out, so I get in the gym, try to get in the gym, 2 to 3 times a week now that we're in season, and then a lot of film. So what I'm able to do, I watch the game back for the weekend, see what I can work on. Then after that, I'm studying the teams that we're playing this week and their shooters and what they're doing and their tendencies and stuff like that. And I think that the more time I put in with that, the better it helps me in a sense. It's almost like reviewing a test in college. And I think that to add to that, on Wednesdays, I'll take shots. We have a place that's like an indoor facility that we're able to get a lot of shots up. So we got 4 or 5 guys that live in market. So
Right.
that's a vital part, I think, to my development as a goalie is to be able to get those shots. Like most guys get a midweek practice and you don't get a practice the night before a game. You only get the shoot around and then game. But we'll do the practice day before the game, shoot around the morning game. So adding that extra midweek shots, I think, is allowing me to kind of take a lot of shots for one, develop a lot quicker, and two, it's allowed me to feel more comfortable in the position that I'm in, and it's allowed me to kind of get better in the long haul.
Right. Well, your team, you got a team full of champions, right? You got half the team just won the Man Cup. You got a bunch of guys that just won the PLL thing. So, how does this how does this team work together in cohesiveness? Like last year was a bit bumpy to start with, but it looked like you all found yourselves. And this year, it really not a whole lot of changes in the lineup. So you're able to really get the cohesiveness working.
Yeah, so like this year, I mean, it was funny. Like all of our draft picks from this year actually aren't playing for our team.
Mhm.
So it's basically the exact same team as last year, but we added Brady Kern, who was drafted in my draft. So
Right. Right.
what that does is it allows us to know who's next to us in the room, who's going to be helping us out, who's going to get us better, and how can we go from there, right? So after the way last season ended, I think it lit a fire under a lot of guys' asses, saying that heck, if we had started a little better, I think we could have had a good chance at being a contender. Now we don't
Absolutely.
know that for sure, but if that were the case, and I think that led into the summertime where guys were able to win the Man Cup and being able to do that with a lot of guys on the team together.
Mhm.
That's contagious. It's going to carry into the locker room for this season, and being able to try and win an NL championship this year is what everyone wants to do, right? But knowing what it takes in the other leagues and taking that to what takes in this league now, I think is going to be a huge factor for us. And I think that we have a lot of experience in there too, so we know what we're doing. We just got to make sure we put all the pieces together at the right time.
Right. Now we only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to make sure I mention this is BD 45 goaltending. Let's talk about the program that you have and getting goaltenders of the future ready.
So in college, once they approved the NIL name, image, and likeness, I decided to start my own goalie coaching company. I found it a way for me to eventually use what my degree was in, which is in sports studies and personal and team coaching, and be able to create an opportunity for me to, one, be lacrosse full time, and two, be able to push the sport forward and do my job of making sure the next generation of kids are ready to go and play. So it's been great so far in Canada. We just had a massive clinic associated with Lacrosse Canada over the Christmas break, and I think that as my story starts to kind of unravel as a player, I think the BD45 landscape's going to start to develop as well. It's going to be awesome to see where it goes in the next couple of years.
Awesome. And is there a lot of camps or clinic?
Yeah, so right now, because obviously I'm in the States, I'm not in Canada, so I'm not able to do a lot of things. But what I'm allowed to do is stuff in Canada. So I try to do one, maybe two a year,
Mhm.
just to kind of get kids dialed in and try to give them something new and make sure that they're all fine tuned and ready to go for the summer recruiting seasons and all that kind of stuff. So I've done two big ones over the last couple of years, and I think that I've got a lot of good feedback for it. And I'm looking forward to doing more as the time comes and associating Lacrosse Canada with it. Maybe I add a West Coast one into the mix too, and go from there. But the issue is finding time because being a full time lacrosse player in both leagues can be tough.
Yeah, definitely. And you got a big one this weekend in Toronto. Wish you the best of luck. I really want to thank you for taking your time and spending the hour with us. It went by literally like that. We just started and here we are. So thank you very much. Best of luck in the season. Best of luck in both seasons, and we wish you continued success.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking me all these questions. It's nice to answer them sometimes.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for being on for me, and a good luck in the season.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes our program. For Gary Groob and Brett Dobson, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. And don't forget Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.